taper. Saw them like they're too long to make a stop. We were a taper. They started coming from really mild. So, did you hear what he said? I asked him, you know, what? Can you just start off by saying and spelling your name and your position?
Yep. Alan Haywood, A-L-A-N, H-A-Y-W-O-O-D, Captain, Arizona Department of Public Safety.
Can you tell us where we are and what happened here tonight?
Sure. We're on Interstate 10 eastbound, Mount Post 156, which is just prior to Guadalupe Road. At about 00:25 hours, which is just after midnight, we had a report of a car fire. Troopers arrived, fire department and troopers arrived on the scene to put the fire out. There was 3 occupants of that vehicle who were standing by the vehicle. When the trooper arrived, he arrived with all of his lights activated, stopped to protect the fire vehicle and the scene. At which point, and then there was another passenger vehicle that was there, a firefighter that was off duty that was assisting. At which point, a smaller Hyundai vehicle then came into the scene, struck the rear of the patrol car, and then that pushed that into the other civilian vehicle that was on scene. That vehicle, the SUV then spun around and then struck the 3 pedestrians that happened to be standing in the emergency lane. There was 2 occupants of that. It was a rideshare vehicle, and then the rideshare passenger and the driver of that vehicle. During the course of our investigation, many people were transported from the scene. Most had minor injuries. Unfortunately, the passenger of the rideshare vehicle was taken to the hospital, and she did not survive her injuries. So right now, we're trying to determine whether impairment or distracted driving is a factor. We believe that distracted driving may be a factor in this collision based on the statements of the driver, but we're continuing our investigation to determine if that was actually the cause.
Can you talk a little bit about, in the state of Arizona, we have a slow down move over law for emergency and service vehicles that are often parked on the side of the roadways. Can you talk about the importance of that and how that could have, affected if this person had moved over for vehicles and what people should do if they come across an emergency scene?
Sure, and I can talk about both our distracted driving laws and our move over laws. The move over law in the state of Arizona, if you see a vehicle that's either has flashing lights or emergency vehicles, or maybe a disabled vehicle that has flashers on it, a lot of times there are people that may be outside of those vehicles as well as inside those vehicles. So it's important to be very careful to either slow down or move over to the lane of traffic to away from that vehicle if possible. That because sometimes passengers of those vehicles, whether it be troopers at the scene or other police officers or emergency personnel or tow truck drivers or the passengers of those vehicles, can inadvertently walk out into traffic, and that could cause a catastrophic injury or death to that particular person if a vehicle doesn't slow down or move over away from those vehicles. So that's the reason for that law. It's a very good law. We've had many first responders, tow truck drivers, and then other people, ADOT workers that have been killed by vehicles over the past few years. So it's really important for people to know that particular law and why we do that. The same thing with the distracted driving law. In Arizona, we have a hands-free law, but even with hands-free, you don't want to be looking down at those phones. You don't want to be taking your eyes off the road for even a second, because in certain cases, if a vehicle is driving 70, 80 miles per hour, and you take your eyes away for a second to 2 seconds, that's the equivalent of a football field or more that you're traveling, taking your eyes off the road. And even with this particular collision, if that's the reason for it, they struck the rear of that patrol car and caused catastrophic injuries to the trooper who has minor injuries but was still transported, and to other people, and then killed a person here at this scene. So.
Can you also just quickly talk a little bit more about the Was the passenger of this in the rear vehicle at this time? Is that
It was a rear-seated passenger in the rideshare vehicle. At this time, we're trying to determine whether or not she was seatbelted in or not. It's important it doesn't matter whether you're in the front seat or the back seat. The law says that the front seat passengers should be seatbelted in. The law doesn't say that a rear seat passenger, unless it's a child, should be seatbelted in. I'm going to tell you that anybody that's in a vehicle, if there's a seatbelt to be used, put that seatbelt on. It will save your life. If in fact this person was not seatbelted in because of the dynamics of the collision and the spinning around of that vehicle and striking the barrier wall and different things like that, the forces involved inside the car are just as catastrophic if that person was outside a car and hit the wall at the same speed. So it is really, really important for people to wear restraints inside the car, regardless of where you are in the vehicle.
Is there any other information you need to add?
Again, just be safe. Keep your wits about you. Watch for things that are happening on the roadway, and if something's going on in front of you and you don't know what's happening, slow down and move over as quickly and as safely as you can.